Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast entitled The Secret War on Cash, as we take a look at some of the changing economic and financial factors that not only are surrounding our economy, but having an effect or an influence on each and every one of us each day as it relates to what we pay in the grocery store, what it takes to fill up our gas tank, what happens in terms of the effect it's having on our investment accounts, our retirement accounts, if we're even able to retire, just given the increase of inflation, cost of living, these things that are, in a manner of speaking, always seem to be just talked about in a very general sense, but they have a very real impact on each and every one of our lives. I have with me my co-host today, Chris Agelastos. Chris, good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm glad to see you're back. Chris has just taken his youngest daughter, his last child, to college. She's all settled in, I hope. And when does she start school, actually?
So classes start on Monday.
Monday, okay.
Yeah. So they get them down there a few days early just to get settled in and everything. And yeah, she's so far so good. So don't worry. I mean, we're monitoring our phones closely, just waiting for a crisis. But so far, everything's been great.
Well, fingers crossed. And she's probably very happy to be away, just to spread her wings a little bit, knowing.
Yeah, for sure.
So. Well, today we're going to talk about what's going on in the job market. Okay. And the first article we're looking at here, the U.S. jobs numbers were just revised down by 818,000 jobs in what they're calling an election year shocker. And I don't even know if I would say it's a shocker or maybe not so much a shocker, but it is somewhat noteworthy and almost record worthy, as it's the second worst revision in U.S. history.
Yeah.
Now, when this correction came out, to most people, in fact, CC, our producer, we just talked about it a moment ago, it wasn't really so much of a surprise, because the way the numbers came out in the first place, it really wasn't all that believable. And, they're saying it's an error. And there's been several of these errors, these accounting errors, where there's revisions or corrections. And, I'll let you kind of talk about this a little bit, Chris, but I think we've even brought up in earlier podcasts that we've done the fact that this is, when you see these type of errors, okay, these revisions, the revisions are never where they've understated and now they have to overstate it.
Yeah.
The revisions are always an overstatement that they now have to revise or understate. And so it is reflective of the real number is reflective of the economy we're all living in. Yep. And the question now becomes, like, is this the end of all the bad news, or is there going to be more revisions and more things like this, especially surprisingly going into an election year?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what they're, we've got to wonder, every number and statistic that comes out from the government, can you really trust it? And, these numbers were released in March, to which at that time, some people were saying this just doesn't feel right, that the job report would be this good. And of course, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they're sort of known as a puppet for the administration. And like you pointed out, their errors always seem to point to a stronger economy, rather than the reality of the weak economy that we're currently living through. So this doesn't help.
You mentioned the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I think in this article I found funny. They refer to it as the Biden Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Right. Very they're certainly trying to get him reelected, I think, with these numbers. Now, they probably wish this revision didn't come out, maybe so close to the election. But you've really just got to wonder, what can we trust? The second largest error, the last one being during the financial crisis in 2009. A lot of people feel like we're, on our way to a similar type of crisis. And now this report comes out that points even more in that direction. So it's frustrating, but and maybe it's just me and I'm somewhat desensitized, but it makes me kind of not trust any of the numbers from the government, which I haven't for years anyhow. But at the end of the day, that's not a good place to be in, right? We shouldn't have to wonder if we're constantly being lied to or not. And it's frustrating, and hopefully we'll see some positive change. I mean, I'm an optimist typically, but when it comes to the government and reporting figures, they never really want to own up to the damage that they've caused.
Well, I agree with you. And what I really found interesting, though, about this particular number, where they're revising it down by 818,000. I believe
Yeah.
the actual number, if I remember correctly, is like 135,000. So my point in saying that, and let's just say it was twice that, say it was a quarter
Mhm.
million. The bottom line is, this isn't just like a slight oversight. This isn't
Right.
like, a small disparity, kind of like you see. It's kind of like when you see on Wall Street a company that misses earnings by a couple pennies or 5 pennies, or the
Right.
projection is off by just a tiny bit. I mean, we're talking this number being off by hundreds of thousands, and
Yeah.
not even close to being accurate. And to your
And it's
point,
an important number, right? It's one of the numbers
huge.
that you want to get right. And we've been operating since March. Our stock market has been operating based on that number being accurate, and it
Right,
is largely inaccurate. So
right.
we've been operating under false pretenses and had a market that's been struggling as it is. You got to wonder how much more would it have struggled if these real numbers came out back in March.
100%. And it is, and that's of some concern, from my perspective, anyways, about this whole deal as well. Is like, you know, is Wall Street strictly counting on the government and the BLS to give them the data, and that's what they're making their decisions on? Meaning, like, how did Wall Street miss this many jobs in their
Right.
analysis of what's going on in corporations out there, or did they? Was it turning a blind eye and a deaf ear because it kind of fueled their purpose or fueled their fire?
Right. It certainly
So,
would be easy to overlook it if it's going to help you, right? So you've got to wonder, who can we trust?
right. Well, and then the next article, to take a look at what really may be happening in our economy, the as it's entitled here, the descent is upon us.
Mhm.
Forget the SOM rule. The indicator has perfectly predicted every U.S. recession since 1930. Since
Mhm.
1930. Now, the SOM rule, I wasn't all that too familiar with it myself, until I read this article and kind of took a look at it. And in fact, I'll just read a little bit here. It was originally developed as an indicator to provide fiscal support to citizens as soon as a recessionary backdrop was evident, and it's grown in popularity as a real-time economic indicator that the economy is in a recession. It signals when we're in a recession.
Mhm.
The accuracy of the rule is stark, they say. It's demonstrated in the following chart, which is shown. If you're listening here, you can find the link to it in your notes there, or if you're watching, you can see it. This is an indicator that has been one of the best in terms of taking a look at where we're at when it comes to these kind of bad things in our economy. So, with this being said, I don't think a recession is a new concept for anybody who's listening to this or anybody who's paying attention to the economy. The question, I guess, Chris, is like, what might we expect to see next? With we're seeing now these job numbers being revised. We're seeing these
Mhm.
indicators that are suggesting things are not as good as what. Well, they're bad. Going into recession,
Right.
we're going to see these pullbacks. Where, if anything, or what do you think is going to be that breaking point that finally causes this house of cards to collapse?
Well, so the big question that everybody is talking about right now is, what is the Fed going to do? How are they going to respond? And keep in mind, the government's pretty much been denying recession, all year long, and everybody else has been talking about how we're either in it or about to be in it. We've talked about that on multiple podcasts this year, and the track record of this, like you pointed out, since 1930 has been 100%. So that's pretty good for the last 95 years. And in this indicator, anytime you hit 0.5 or higher in this indicator, it signals that you are either currently in a recession or you definitely will have recession soon. And in July, we hit 0.53. So now, is there a chance this is the first time in the last 95 years that this indicator is wrong? Certainly, there's a slight chance that is possible. But I think everybody can agree, looking at the job numbers and all the other indicators we've been talking about, that recession is if not imminent, already here. So interest rate cuts, that's one of the big tools that the Fed has. And that's the question they're posing even in this article. Are we in for a soft or a hard landing? Because we're definitely coming down. But how well is the Fed going to be able to manage it? People are predicting maybe a 1% rate cut by year end. But if that comes a little too late or it's a little soft and they don't cut enough, it can cause a major economic downturn. So it can worsen the recession, and then it's really hard to get out of that. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back. Once you overload things, it takes a lot more work to get back to normal. So again, this is a situation where we're sort of counting on the Fed or hoping that the Fed can handle it properly and do what they need to do and keep us out of a long-term recession. But unfortunately, I don't know if I really trust the government to make the right decision and make it at the right time. And that's kind of the scary part here. So there's a lot of unknowns. We just don't know how bad it's going to be and how long it's going to last yet.
Yeah, and well, going back to the first article we read with the overstatement of the jobs numbers, and you take a look at this indicator, and I think that what really it speaks to is the fact that there is multiple vulnerabilities out there. And I mean, truthfully, when you look at things like the debt, things that are happening globally, these fabricated numbers, this indicator, all these various things, as much as I hate to say it, we might be fortunate to only have a recession because the amount of things that are beginning to kind of develop here has all the makings of literally an out and out collapse, which heaven forbid we do have that. But it really is getting to be just amazing to see the amount of information, the amount of vulnerabilities financially and economically that are continuing to grow. And hopefully that doesn't come home to roost. But by the same token, you got to ask yourself, how is it not? So well, thank you for that, Chris, and thank you for those of you tuning in. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so you can tune into this podcast and several others that we will be bringing over the course of not only the rest of this year, but likely for years to come. And if you have not contacted our office to receive some information about some of these things, to find out a little bit more about what's happening in the investment world, please do so by calling our toll-free at 1-800-289-2646 or visit us online at www.swissamerica.com. Thanks again so much and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.
Take care.